I want you to get together.
What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm joined once again with Paul Stobbs with Understanding Conspiracy. That's your YouTube channel, his Instagram. Everything's basically Understanding Conspiracy, right, Paul?
That's it. Yep, that's where you'll find me.
And I got to say, man, the last show that we did with the little season, man, that got a huge reaction. Some good, some bad.
Yeah.
I had people emailing me, I got to do a roundtable with him. He's wrong. He misquoted the Bible. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, it was just like you got a lot of backlash, got a lot of positive stuff too. A lot of people were in there, positive comments. Did you watch that program? That broadcast?
Yeah. Well, I anticipated the response that we got. Honestly, I get it every day, because I talk about it on my channel, and I'm a part of a community that's trying to like explain the idea clearly. And I've been on many podcasts explaining that concept. And I know it's trippy, it's hard, and it goes completely against what we've kind of been taught, especially through the mainstream church line. But I think there's weight to it, and so do a lot of other people, hence the extremely triggering reaction, I think, because I never I didn't say anything that wasn't scripturally based, and I think a lot of people really just don't want to hear it because they believe something for so long. But honestly, I think it's a game changer, that topic, and it's just one of many topics I talk about. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you're just challenging the narrative, man. You're just rattling the cage, and I love that, to be honest with you. And I think we should all open our minds a little bit and think outside the box. Like, anything's possible. Nobody knows absolutely anything. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. So I think everyone, that's why, my platform, I try to bring everyone on to bring a piece of the puzzle, and we can all together form a bigger picture. It's just, it takes a group effort, but, this today is really intriguing to me. This is going to be very interesting because we're talking about, with everything that's going on right now with aliens, UAPs, drones, they're getting ready to do the whole alien thing. The Nephilim. What are these entities? What are these aliens? Where do they really come from? Are they from other planets? Are they from other galaxies, other dimensions? Are they from hell? What are they? And I think we're going to really cover a lot of stuff today with the Nephilim, and you're going to say the Nephilim are all clowns.
Yeah, I know what it sounds like. Believe me, I really do know what this sounds like when you first hear it. Just bear with me. Give me an hour or two of your time, and I bet I can convince you that there's something to this, okay? And this is what I'm predominantly known for. The thing we last talked about, that's something quite new that I've only just started to kind of get into over the past year with the Millennial Kingdom stuff. But this is what I've been doing for 8 years, since 2016. And I have written the book on the subject, published it a year ago. This is just volume 1. I've got another book in the works to finish this series off. It's on Amazon. You can get it access.
Okay, so people can get that on Amazon. You haven't written a book about the little season yet.
No, I didn't.
Are you going to?
I don't know. Maybe not. Like I said, I did say there's a fantastic book already available, 50 pages there. You can get that on Amazon. There's a friend of mine who wrote that one, part of our little community in that. So I recommend going to read that if you just want to know what that theory is all about. Maybe one day. But my project is to finish off this body of work on the Nephilim clowns. Like I said,
why is this so important to you, the Nephilim clowns?
It's my baby. This is everything you're about to hear is completely from my own mind. This is my work through and through, from start to finish.
How big is that book?
This is about 350 pages.
Beautiful. That's good work, man.
And
there's a lot of work.
There's a lot of work. Yeah, and again, I've made it a scholarly work. This is fully referenced. There's about 383 references all throughout the entire book. There's quotes to back up everything I'm saying. You can go and find out where I'm getting my information from. Historical records, memoirs, other people's works, other people's research into many fields. It's all backed up in this because I know what I'm saying sounds extraordinary, and extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. And I've tried to give you everything I possibly can in this. But the second book's in the works as well. It's going to be just as thick, if not thicker. And hopefully that'll be my work finished, because there is a series on my channel you can go and watch. It's a 45 episode playlist now, dedicated to this whole thing from start to finish with visuals from when I began in 2016. And the first early episodes, like the first 17, are just the ramblings of a madman trying to make sense of what I've just discovered. I'm just trying to get it all out there, and it's all over the place. But then from then on, the quality gets better, the thought processes get better, new discoveries come along, and the latter episodes, I would say, are the best after the first 17. And again, it's all there for free. You don't have to buy the book if you want to understand this theory. The book is just kind of like a summary of everything, all put into writing, black and white. And I've been doing the podcast circuit on this for a couple of years, a few years. Honestly, I must have been on over 100 podcasts talking about this now. I took a bit of a break, and I went on to do the Millennial Kingdom stuff and did the podcast circuit on that. But I'm coming back to this now to, like I said, get it finished, get it boxed off, because this is important to me. This is spiritual warfare. This is my first love, as a Christian contrarian. Understanding demonology, where the demons come from, how we can protect ourselves against such things, and how they are all pervasive in our culture today is a really important topic to me. And I think this particular take on it definitely hooks people in and gets them to start really thinking about these things in a way they perhaps never would have considered it before. And that's basically it.
So obviously, you could tell that I have a big Christian audience, right? And I have a lot of guests on that claim to be prophetic, or they do time, and their one says is a time analyst. And, I have different guests on that say different things. And I love to hear all of their points of view because I think they're all very valuable. But they offered to have you on as a roundtable, and you declined. And I was curious about why you declined, because you are challenging people's belief systems. You are coming out here and saying what they would think is outlandish. I find it very intriguing and interesting. But what do you have to say to those people? Why do you decline a roundtable? And I didn't mean to put you on the spot here, but I was just curious.
Well, someone once said to me, or kept using this phrase in the community, it's kind of like, I'm a truth seeker, not a belief defender. I'm not a debater. It's just not my forte. It's not what I'm involved with. I'll bring you the information I've got. I'll present what I've found. Take it or leave it. And that's just kind of my attitude on it. I understand the type of guests you were getting me to discuss probably were extremely offended by the things I had
some
said.
were livid. They were livid.
And they wanted to basically tear me apart publicly in some way and probably not give me a fair shake either way, And it's, look, I've seen it before, and it's kind of, look, take it or leave it. You know where to find my information if you're interested as an audience member. I'm not interested in going for shows and debates or anything like that. It's just not my style.
Then that's fine. That's all you have to say. That's perfect. That's a perfect reason. So, man, I'll let you have the floor, and let's take this off. Okay, when I think of clowns, circus, right? I go into the circus and seeing a Cirque du Soleil. But what I think you're going to do here, what I feel that you're going to do here, is take us back in time as this being a common theme and how it relates to entities as little lowercase g gods.
Yes.
And right? Okay, so that's where I thought you were going with this.
It gets trippy. This gets weird. Okay, and look, when I first started this line of research, I did not know it would end up becoming such a big body of work. I didn't realize there was so much there until it was a thread you start pulling at. It just keeps going, and like I said, I had to write a book to get it all down because it just got ridiculous. Like, I don't even care about clowns. Look, I don't have posters of clowns in my room growing up. I didn't go to the circus or anything. I'm not like a member of the Insane Clown Posse or anything like that. I'm not a juggalo, I don't care about clowns. They're not like something I love necessarily, or even gave a second thought to. It's just something, this work is just something I just discovered, and I have to lay it out there for people to see. And I think it helps a lot of people really understand some of the demonic experiences they've had in their own life as well, and also understand how to defend themselves through the power in the name of Jesus Christ and the authority we actually have over this defeated enemy. So really, it's a gospel trap, my work. I'm trying to get them in with the clowns, and then I'm giving them the gospel. You know what I mean? It works for a generation, especially a generation that's so kind of heavily influenced by clown culture today, and is so heavily invested in the archetype image of being a clown that's so against society, and I think a lot of people are identifying with the clown character like the Joker, let's say, today, more so, not realizing, and what I'm kind of explaining is that's kind of a trap. They're doing that on purpose, because what the clown is, and this is what my work is very summarized very quickly, the costume of a Western clown was created specifically as a copy of the costumes worn by ancestor spirit worship cultures found all over the earth. It's just the Western version of the same costumes. And they wear those costumes in those cultures to channel the spirits of their ancestors, which have wild red hair, pale white skin, their multicolored patterns all over that skin, multicolored clothing they often wear as well, or feathered clothing, or sequined clothing of some kind. They take drugs, do ritualistic dances, dress this way to let the spirits into their body. Because what they're doing is trying to create a mirror image of something in the spirit realm. When you create a mirror of something in the spirit realm, you create a channel or a portal to them, and it lets them in. And it's a transaction in these cultures. They let the demon in, they drink and eat and whatever, give the demons stuff through their body. So the demons like experiencing things using their senses. That's the offer. And in return, the demon gives them something. Strength, the ability to be cut and not bleed.
Transactional.
It's a transaction. It's a deal. They're making a deal. Yeah. So there's benefits to doing this in these cultures.
So hold on. People are going to all of a sudden, right now, they're thinking to themselves, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just had a clown at my kid's birthday party. He was making animal balloons. You know what I mean? Are clowns evil?
Well, look, the problem is in the West, we don't think there's any weight or importance to how we dress. It's just not a thought to us. Clowns are just something fun for the kids, aren't they? From our perspective. That's kind of we call that exoteric meaning that the initiated want the public to understand. So the basic understanding is a clown is something harmless and fun. Okay, that's what they want you to see that image as. But to the occult, to those in secret societies who were heavily involved in creating the costume of a clown, and we'll get into this history soon, they know what it really represents. They understand it's actually a tool used to channel demons. That's simply what it is.
So dressing up like a clown, even dressing up on Halloween, is really, anytime you're stepping out of yourself to put yourself in a costume, you're really giving those entities permission to
basically
possess you to what? I mean, if I dress like a clown for a kid's birthday party,
well,
I mean,
possession's the game. Yeah, that's what these demons are after. They're after your
body. Was it Gacy, the clown serial killer? I mean,
we can touch on that.
I mean, my mind's starting to go in different directions now.
It does. Well, I think this is one of those topics that once you start really thinking about it, doorways open up to all sorts of avenues where you can go down with this research, which is why the book's getting so thick, because there is so many subtopics within this. And we'll touch on a few today. I'll give you a brief overview. For those who want to really get into the meat of this, it's all on my channel, going down all these avenues, really fleshing them out and understanding it. But today I'll give you the history of the clown, where we get it from, why it represents demons, how we can know it was done on purpose, and why we should be careful about it. So I'll introduction to concept today, but the meat is available on my channel and in the book I've written as well. And I've got a showcase for you guys, some pictures to back up what I'm talking about here and there. So if I was to explain the origin of a clown, first of all. Okay, so what sparked my interest in all of this is the 2016 clown sightings. Do you remember this? Do you remember when suddenly people were dressing like clowns on street corners in 2016?
And in the forest, like random places, man.
Holding knives and sledgehammers, just looking menacing and scary.
It happened to me. I was driving at about midnight and I saw one standing at the median, and I just, well, I mean, I held up my hand and bop. Back to when I was driving by, but whatever. That's a whole other story. But
that's what happened to a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of people stood up to them. But
like a pink,
something weird happened though, didn't it? Because the hysteria was palpable. Everyone was like, "What is going on? I'm terrified!" And it kind of spread throughout what we call the Anglosphere, English-speaking countries, Canada, America, all of Europe, Britain, and wherever that was happening, wherever the clown is a Western concept. People were just dressing up like them and spooking people and getting in on it, And it became a bit of a wild phenomenon because it doesn't matter what news station it was, minor news stations in local areas, or even international news or, countrywide news, they were all talking about it. And I knew enough about my research into the occult and how that works to know that nothing gets on that box in the corner of your living room unless they want it there. They want us seeing this stuff. And I got my cogs turning.
They kickstart the algorithm. That's what they push out into the algorithm. That's why when you see on the internet debauchery and this derelict behavior everywhere and stuff like what we're talking about or conservative politics or anything like that gets throttled down in the algorithm so you don't reach anybody.
Well, I realize it's kind of, okay, so if they're showing it on the news so much, it means something to these people who own the media. The clown is a symbol for something. And I kind of done all my history research into biblical history, through the Watchers mating with human women, having offspring, which were called the Nephilim, which became giants, mighty men of renown. And I was kind of swimming in all this knowledge for years, kind of studying it out, reading the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, the Book of Jasher, and really contextualizing it with numbers, and the lands of Canaan being Persian, and trying to understand what are the Nephilim and where do they come from and what happens to these giants. And it makes it very clear in Enoch that fiery flying serpents or seraphim angels, dragons basically, are the type of creatures who mix themselves with human women, likely through the lineage of Cain, the bad ones, you know. And what happens when you merge a dragon with a human? What you get
A
is
serpent with legs and arms? I don't know.
It would look weird, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It would look pretty damn strange, you know. And as an artist, you know, I have my degree in fine art. I'm quite a creative mind, and I was thinking about imagining it like, what would that look like? That would look insane, you know. When you really get down to it, that would look weird. But all I'd ever seen in these presentations when people talk about the Nephilim is like hench, tanned, long, brown-haired, Conan the Barbarian looking dudes, but like 30 foot tall, you know what I mean? It's kind of, I don't think they would
like
look...
studs.
Yeah,
studs.
yeah, with massive pecs like sticking out.
Yeah,
like
a
this,
woman
you know?
would love to sleep with them.
And it's kind of wear like a loincloth or something, or with a club, you know.
Yeah.
And like they wouldn't have looked like that if it was a dragon human hybrid. They wouldn't look human at all.
Would it be a reptilian?
Well, this is what we're going to get into and what I'm going to showcase to you. And it turns out, you know, if you look to other cultures all over the earth and look for their examples of giant man-eating monsters, well, they don't look human at all. And like I said, we'll get into it. And so after that 2016 clown sighting, everything kind of clicked into place for me, because I also come from like a psychedelic background before I was born again, and I was exploring consciousness through DMT, you know, name a psychedelic. I was doing it regularly, you know, and I
Ibogaine?
maybe not that one. No,
Okay.
more like LSD, psilocybin, that realm, salvia.
I'm right there with you. I did all that too.
DMT, salvia, all that kind of stuff, you know. Microdosing every other day, experimenting with levels. And
Right.
I was aware in the culture of DMT jesters. Okay, and it's a very well understood phenomena. I've seen one myself, you know, and there's these entities just beyond a veil of our perception that look like clowns that are in this
You're
place.
100% right. You know what? Now that I think about it, when I did DMT, when I did ayahuasca, and I smoked Jurema, I remember, yeah, it looked like the entity wasn't threatening or anything like that, but they had beautiful different kaleidoscope type colors, and it was very fluid and very, right? Am I
Yeah.
explaining this correctly?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
very geometrical, and everything made sense. I don't know. But yeah, like it would be a clown. Like now that I think about it,
That's
it
the
would,
word we
and
have.
this existence would be a clown.
The word we have is jester. That's all we can really think when we see
Jester,
something
right.
like that. It's like Harlequin, diamond pattern, sequined, shiny, multicolored, big wide grin, crazy bulging eyes looking thing, you know. And it's not like it was wearing a jester's cap or like a leotard or something. Its body was like that. It was shaped like jester horns.
It
you
had
know?
like the jester thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you saw the same thing.
Absolutely, I did. Yeah.
Wow.
So I after I was born again and left the drugs behind and went fully sober, you know, and just left that life behind, basically, I had a DMT flashback where I was back in the DMT realm for no reason. Did not want that. Did not plan that. You know, I just, bam, I'm back in that place. And you know that place if you've been there before. You know where you are instantly. You feel it, you know, and you see it. But this time I'm in front of an enormous giant, which is a black and white fractal pattern jester being of some kind. And I'm back after like 10 seconds, and I don't know what to do with that. It's like, what the hell was that, you know? So they are there. The DMT jesters do exist. Finally, I've seen one, but it's only after I quit the stuff did it decide to reveal itself to me in some weird way. So, like I said, a lot of strange things like this had kind of happened in my life, which are culminated in this research with that 2016 clown sightings, which kind of all clicked into place. And I had learnt that the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, when they were wiped out just before the flood and during the flood, their souls were stuck on earth. They became disembodied. But they didn't go to heaven or hell or anywhere. They're not compatible with leaving the earth.
Could we call them laggard souls?
Well, they're just stuck. They're just
Stuck.
not. They were never
They're stuck in this dimension.
Yeah, they were never supposed to exist. They're an abomination. You know, they're a result of angels mixing with humans. It's the term is nefesh. It's like the soul, the spirit, their essence that is in the vessel. Well, it's not compatible with anything but the earth. It's stuck here in death. So it's kind of they're still here in mass numbers, just without a body. And Christ explains when a demon comes out of a body, an unclean spirit is cast out of a body, it's destined to wander in dry places, seeking another vessel. So it hungers and it thirsts, but it has no means to satisfy that hunger or craving or desires because it hasn't got a body to do those things with. So it hasn't got hands or fingers or a tongue or eyes or ears or anything to
So
experience.
this is demonic possession.
So the whole game of possession is that demon, that disembodied spirit of a Nephilim, wants to be in a human body to feel things again, to taste things, to experience things that it used to be able to do when it was a giant on the earth, ruling over humanity and subjugating them and eating them and doing all sorts of horrible things to them, which again is all in the book. The whole history is there. I'm summarizing very quickly, but this is what we have on the other side of our sensory perception today. We have demons, which are the disembodied
Which would also
spirits.
make sense with alien abductions because they need our DNA. They're trying to acquire a body.
Yes, I think they're trying to today create a new vessel for them to inhabit. Because the problem is with our bodies, we're in here. So it's a tight squeeze for them. And there's a struggle, you know, and it's messy, it's sloppy to possess a human. Because at any moment, the human could realize their authority over the demon in the name of Jesus Christ and get filled with the Holy Spirit, and that demon's out. Evicted instantly, you know. And it's not optimal for a demon to possess humans. They're looking for a better way, that's for sure. And I think transhumanism and AI and all these type of things are getting involved with that process in the long term.
And also genetic altering or genetic, like
that,
what's
yeah.
happening in the deep underground bases with the laboratories. They're probably creating genetic modifications or hybrids or whatever they want to so they can acquire that kind of body. That's why there's so many sightings now of the Yeti, the Sasquatch, the Dogman, different cryptids that are out in these national forests, right? Would those be the Nephilim?
Well, it's interesting, actually, because I do talk about this in the book, and it's a working theory in the community, but there was a time just before the flood, about 250 years just before the flood hit in Noah's time. And the book of Jasher talks about this. So the giants were actually dead by this point. It was a punishment for the angels who made them to watch their children kill each other. That's the Nephilim. And once the Nephilim were dead, and I'm guessing giant bodies were just strewn all over the place like mountains, you know what I mean? And the humans were still around. It talks about how humans took it upon themselves to genetically engineer themselves with the knowledge that was taught to them by the angels. Okay, so rather than mixing ourselves with humans, let's make the humans mix themselves together and create monsters, you know? And it's called the mixing of kinds of one animal with another. And I think humans in that 250-year period just before the flood merged themselves with animals. And this is where you get mermaids, sirens, dogmen, wolfmen, lizardmen, mothmen, any hybrid animal-human mix all came about during that pre-flood era. And I think they made it through. I think that's why we have cryptids today. I think they're still around and have been...
I mean, they're definitely being spotted more than ever. But now, I mean, I can't tell what's AI, what's not, but I watch certain channels and I'm like, man, they are out there. There's some stuff there's some videotape, there's some photos of the trail cams that are undoubtedly true, real.
There's a real physical problem on the earth, of corruption, of monsters, absolutely.
Right.
But the Nephilim disembodied spirits are what we call demons today, the spirit entities that don't have a body. And it was theorized that in the just before the flood, the reason the mixing of kinds happened was to give them vessels that were corrupted so the spirits could get back in. So they've just been wiped out, but we'll make hybrid bodies so they can get back again, you know. And then the flood just wiped everything out, reset everything. And I think if you're a fish person, you can survive a flood. So we have Marine Kingdom, mermaid monsters all throughout many cultures, fish people, the Dogon fish people is quite a famous one, rising out of the sea and starting religions. Africa have their own fish god that kind of started.
That would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I think they tried to after the flood, they reestablished the corruption once more through many, many methods. And again, we cover a lot of them in the book. But yeah, I think the mixing of kinds thing, these are people who try to Nephilimify themselves. They try to become like Nephilim, but they're just mutants. They're ex-men. They used to be men. They've changed themselves, okay? And that's where we get cryptids from. I think that's where that comes from. But the Nephilim was something else. They were half angel, half human. They were half gods. They were divine, you know? They glowed.
Demigods.
Yeah, they glowed. They were giants. They had powers and to like mess with the mind on many levels. They were not
because they were angels that were cast out of heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. They were half angel. Imagine that. You know, imagine being half angel. These other things, these cryptids, they were just humans who genetically modified themselves, you know, to give themselves power and strength and ability so they could survive in a brutal, horrible world where everyone was killing each other. It was no picnic before the flood, you know, maybe upgrading your DNA was the only way to survive back then. You know, give yourself the horns of a bull and the strength of 10 men or whatever, or the skin of a beetle so it's impenetrable or something like that. You know, there's many, I've theorized of many reasons for it, but we know scripturally it happened. So the justifications are anyone's guess. But the Nephilim, these are the OGs. These are half angel, half human hybrids. And I think specifically half dragon, half human. The seraphim angels, those closest to God who sing around his throne, holy, holy, holy. The only ones who can even get anywhere near God because of the way they're structured with their wings to cover themselves. I think those are the ones God trusted to be the watchers over humanity, and they failed miserably. And they ended up mixing themselves with human women and creating monsters. And these are the Nephilim. So that's where they come from. They're disembodied. Now we live in an age where we don't see demons anymore because they're disembodied. There's no giants walking around, but their spirits are still here. We just don't perceive them. I have this one idea, because it says after the flood of Noah, he put a rainbow in the sky as like a offer that I'll never flood the earth again. It's like a promise. It's God's promise to Noah. But funnily enough, a rainbow is the light spectrum we can perceive. And it's implying rainbows didn't exist before this time. So I think God may have limited our perception down to the narrow bandwidth of the light spectrum, the multicolored rainbow we see, so we don't see the demons. So we're not DMTing, we're not tripping all the time, like in DMT mode, seeing the spirit realm and the physical realm.
DMT, the way I describe it, is like taking the guck off a windshield.
Yes.
That's all it is for me. Like all it was just cleaning a windshield, and I saw clearer than day everything.
Everything. All at once.
And that's what a lot of people, can cause a lot of problems. But for me, in my way, it was healing. But I now looking back on it as a Christian, yeah, I agree with you.
I don't think the DMT realm's evil. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to have your perceptions opened up enough to see that realm, which, by the way, is the Earth. It's still the Earth. It's the one in the same place. I describe the DMT realm as like the plumbing of the universe. It's the wiring behind the walls. It's
taking the watch apart and looking inside the inner workings.
But it's necessary for the world to exist. We wouldn't have a place to exist with our bodies if that wasn't going on behind the scenes. It's making it happen. It's
correct. You're seeing the spirit world. Basically, I saw people meditating when I was doing the DMT experience. It was 3 shamans. They were sitting there meditating to ward off the bad. That's what they said they were doing. And I saw an orange glow coming out of their foreheads into just endless, infinite. And I could not believe what I was looking at. So it was like cleaning the guck off a windshield and seeing everything for what it is, the powers of everything. It was amazing.
It is amazing. It's God's creation. It's wonderful. But the problem is it's infested with parasites called demons now, which is why I think we're not supposed to see it. It's a mercy.
So it's like a crowded airport. It's it's everything. Yeah.
I think it's a mercy of God that he limited our perceptions. Otherwise, we'd still be communing with the demons that try to kill us and eat us and subjugate us to begin with. So, a lot of people think like, we've been limited and we're being kept down. It's kind of like, no, if you could see everything all at once, the demons would just be communicating with you and manipulating you and lying to you again. So now they have to be clever. They have to find newer ways of getting us to communicate with them and open up those portals because we can't see them necessarily. So they've been influencing culture subtly for years.
That's a lot of truth right there, man. You're right. It is just intertwined and intermixed. What you see is what you're seeing it all. That's true. That's exactly what I saw.
But this is spiritual warfare, man. And look, like I said, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with having your perceptions open and seeing the spirit realm. But right now, it's a no man's land. It's a danger. It's a war zone. It's full of demons who hate you and want to kill you and want your body. So I think you shouldn't be dabbling with that stuff just for your own safety, is what I would say. And especially if you're ignorant of this stuff I'm telling you, then you are literally just an idiot wandering around in between like the trenches, picking up flowers and smelling them, not realizing both you're about to get taken out. You know what I mean? You're just naive. You're not prepared for what you're involved with, and don't give into astonishment. It looks pretty and amazing, but the entities that are there are malevolent. They do not have your best interest at heart. They're after your body and they'll take it and they'll lie to you. They'll say anything that you will believe, and they know you. They've been around for thousands of years. They're not idiots. You know, they know what makes you tick. They know what to say to you.
They're very clever.
That's going to get you. You know, it's like they'll come at you and say, "Oh yeah, we're fifth dimensional ascended masters, or we're aliens from another dimension, or we're people from the future have reached a level of consciousness, or whatever." They'll lie to you about whatever they are. We're angels. Who cares? They'll say anything. Whatever you will believe, they'll tell you, and that's the common thread you find. Anyone who communicates with these entities all has a different name for them because that's what they were suckered into believing, because that's what they were most likely going to believe. But they can't all be right. So that means someone's lying somewhere. So what are these entities? Well, they're liars. So they have an agenda, basically.
Accusers and liars.
Exactly. So now we've understood that demons are in a veil just beyond our perception, and people dress like them to channel them in these ancestor spirit worship cultures, because they when they say ancestor spirits, they don't mean grandma or granddad. That's not what they're talking about. They mean primordial gods of their civilization, the creators of their cultures. And if you go really, really, really far back in history, it's equated to giants creating their cultures. So they're trying to get in commune with the ancient culture creators. That's what they mean by ancestor. And they are the Nephilim. And they all have common threads. It doesn't matter what continent you go to. It does not matter. They all do the same thing, just with their own cultural specific aesthetic. Different, whatever materials they've got is what they use, you know.
Indigenous people more so. I mean, indigenous people in Australia, here in America, everywhere. They all put on these beautiful shrouds and costumes and do the dances for the rain god, sun god.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. If you go down to any continent, to any country within the continent, to any small village, they'll have something that is like the oldest cultural practice, you know, the pagan practice or the ancestor spirit practice. And yes, they white the skin up, red headdress of some kind, black eye paint of some kind as well, and multicolored clothing of some kind. What we would
and
call
you'll
in the
hear
West.
people all the time saying, "Well, you got to respect it's their culture." Nah. No. That's not what we're saying here. They are worshiping the Nephilim, false gods.
They've all got their own way of doing it, and they all have their own stories to justify it, because the Nephilim were everywhere, on every continent, doing stuff, being heroes sometimes, or sometimes being tyrants. So every area has their own myth, their own stories, their own style of representing them, but they're all talking about the same creatures that were once in control in a very ancient time. And it's
so why do the Nephilim so badly want the human body? Is it because
you have to
we're
understand
portals to the creator? We're open containers.
Originally, they didn't care. Originally, when they had bodies, they didn't care. We were just fodder to them. We were just playthings. We were just their servants, their subjects. You know, what are you going to do against the giant? You know, if you look into it, they became kings of these places, rulers of these places, gods of these small little places all over the place. You know, they were the local giant god king, whatever that was. You know, and people were just food to them. Playthings, you know. But once they were dead and disembodied, they lost everything. And they were prideful, brutal, horrible monsters who hate us. They hate us for what we are, because God chose us over their parents, the serpents, you know. And it's kind of, they feel cheated. We are their enemy as far as they're concerned, and we should be bowing down to them. They never left that pride or hubris behind.
So they have this entitlement, this royalty.
Yeah.
How dare you not worship us? How are you better than us? And they despise us.
Basically, yeah. But now they're nothing.
Wow.
Now they're nothing. Now they're just disembodied, loosey-goosey jesters in the
once
spirit realm,
royalty,
you know?
though. Once kings and queens.
Exactly.
Once.
Yeah.
This is just to me like brilliant because this makes the most sense to me. Now that they're disembodied, wandering this planet with nowhere to go, they have to possess. They're stuck here.
Well, they're stuck here without a body. And look, you've been to the DMT realm where they are. Aren't you glad you get to come back after 10 minutes?
Yes. Yeah. And as soon as I got anxiety, I came back.
Could you imagine being there for an eternity?
No way.
You'd go insane, wouldn't you? And they are insane. They are desperate to get out of there any chance they can get. And if they can get into a human body to do that, they'll do it. Okay? And it's optimal for the human not to know that they've been possessed or there's a demon dwelling within them. and they'll subtly make the human think they want to go and do that horrible thing. They want to go kill that person and drink their blood. They want to go take that drug or have sex with that person or do whatever the demon likes. It'll make the person.
So let me ask you this. So look, I like to call it my past life now because I don't live like that anymore. I've been sober for 5 years and 4 months. But my past life, right? I was just, to me, I was just a kid having fun, doing what I wanted to do, boxing, fighting, womanizing, drinking. But all of those things were portals, correct? I mean, I made a lot of bad decisions, and bad things happened. So alcohol, marijuana, gateway drugs, other drugs, those are all portals, correct, to these entities to come in and use you for that moment?
In many ways, I wouldn't say the portals, more so what the demons crave, and they'll make you do those things and think you're making the choice to do them, and like you want to do them. But the truth is, when you're born again, the conviction of the Holy Spirit's over your body, and those demons have kind of been cast out in a sense. Now they'll oppress you rather than possess you. And they'll come after you and attack you and give you sleep paralysis. And this is what happened to me. They'll try and kill you because it's kind of like, if we can't have you, nobody can type of attitude. But
So
eventually,
it's even harder.
yeah. So, but I wouldn't say those things are the portals necessarily. But it's definitely it's examples that you have demons within you. It's a telltale sign, and obviously that we play some part in it. We choose to say yes and do the drug. In a way, we give in to the temptation, but that temptation comes from the demon, is what we're trying to say here. And when you're filled with the Holy Spirit, you don't have those temptations anymore. You have conviction. It's kind of like, why do you think that's a good idea? Are you sure you want to do that anymore? But in the past, when it was demons, it was like, yeah, go on, do it. What harm's it going to do? Just live your life, man. Have fun. You only live once. That kind of stuff. You have that attitude, it's harmless, man. It's just a herb. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you have these views.
It's from the earth.
Yeah, exactly. But is that really you thinking that, or is something trying to convince you to continue doing these things? This is what spiritual warfare really comes down to. Because I find when you're truly born again and give yourself over to Christ, you don't think that way anymore.
Wow,
and it's not because you've become boring all of a sudden. It's because there's a voice in the back of your head that's really finally on your side. Do you know what I mean? That's telling you.
Yeah, I just had a friend call me that I talk to every now and occasionally, and then they're sober 2 years, and they're like, "You've been sober five and a half years." I'm like, "Yeah," and they said, "Well, you're not really sober." I go, "Why? What do you mean?" "Well, you still take NyQuil, so you're still drinking alcohol. You're still a drinker." And I thought to myself, "What?" That was like, he planted that seed, and I was like, "That's evil." That was like a demon right there, like boom.
Oh yeah,
that's how I took it.
The accuser, it's doubts. Yeah, exactly. No,
right.
No. You have to ask yourself the question: were you in control in your past life, or were the drugs controlling you? No, exactly.
I could say no. I lost control. Put it that way.
Exactly, and you know the difference than taking a NyQuil to help you sleep at night versus needing to smoke another joint. Otherwise, you can't exist in reality.
I don't touch any of that stuff, and it's just like, but yeah, you're right. But that little sowing of doubt. Mm-hmm. That's how it works.
Never let your salvation be in doubt. If you're giving yourself over to Christ, then He's on your side. Never let anyone take that away from you.
Right.
And although not all things are necessarily profitable, all things are legal. All things are allowed. So don't worry about it. Don't let the conviction get you. That's the way I kind of see it. You're saved. It's fine.
Right.
And you're doing the right thing. You're spreading the right message. And like you said, your sobriety is a battle. I get it. You know what I mean? And like I said, I think I've been sober now for about 6-7 years, something like that. I don't drink, but when I do drink, it's only a few. I don't get drunk, and it's for an occasion, for a reason. It's justified. And even then, I don't enjoy it, really. I feel awful afterwards, and I don't have time to drink because I got family and things like this. But it's that's different than when I was smashing a bottle of wine every other night before going out and then doing some hardcore uppers and the rest of it. That's not the same thing, It's checks and balances, isn't it? And this is why don't let anybody like a legalist type make you feel bad for the basic stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. That's why I brought it up. I thought it was very, for this
Yeah.
podcast. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
the clown thing. Okay, so let's talk
Sure.
about that for a second, because a lot of people are sitting here going, "Okay, the clowns. You guys lost me. The clowns."
Well, we've laid context, haven't we?
You think birthday parties, bro?
Yeah.
You think circuses? What's the harm in that? I want to take my kid to see a circus. I want my kid to
Yeah.
go watch clowns juggle. Whatever. Like, so what do you have to say to something like that when it's all in just fun?
Maybe today it's not quite what it used to be. Circuses, it's quite old-fashioned now. Circuses, aren't they? We have TV now. We have music industry. We have a completely different type of circus today, through performances and of all types on many stages. But if you look at the history of the clown, what I can prove to you is that a clown has always represented a demon, and it wasn't even
And
hidden,
not to mention, a clown could also be a celebrity.
Well, yeah. Actually, the spirit of clowning itself is something to be highly questionable about. I think irreverence and the spirit of the Joker, let's say, is the spirit of the Nephilim. It's prideful, it's hateful, it's spiteful. It puts people down, and it takes nothing serious, and it wants to basically just make people feel like life is meaningless and pointless. And the catchphrase of the Joker is, "Why so serious?" I think there's definitely something to said for the Nephilim spirit perfectly manifested in something like a Joker or a clown. I think that could be said. But let's just get down to brass tacks and get literal. So I'll share the screen with you, and I'll show you some photos to back up some of the things I'll be talking about as we weave through it, and just to give your audience a real understanding here that I'm not making this up. Like, this is well understood history if you go looking for it. So I'm going to open.
Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather? It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really liked bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim looks like clowns. It's no laughing matter.
Okay, so can you see this?
Looks like a jester.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start telling some stories, and I'll try and find pictures to back some of the things up as I go along, okay? This is just the starting photo of many I've compiled here. I've collected thousands over the years, and I've just got maybe a couple 200 here for you, which I'll weave through. So, first of all, clowning, as we understand it, or clowns, are actually quite a modern invention, invented in 1799. Okay, the costume of a clown, as we understand
1799 is when it was invented?
Yeah, about 200 years ago. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago where we get what we conceptualize today as a clown with a red nose, red hair, white skin, honking, juggling clowns, Very new invention. And if we want to follow the historical narrative of how it got there, this is what I'm going to tell you today. So traditionally, coming out of the Greek Attic theatre, there's always been performances, there's always been funny people, all the way back to Egypt. Comedy and funny men have always existed, but they aren't what we're talking about here when we talk about the image of a clown. It's actually a British invention from the early 18th century, the late 18th century. But coming out of that Greek and Roman tradition of mask-wearing funny people, you'll find it around about the 500s. It was declining in popularity to be a performer. This came with the conversion of Rome to Christendom and the Roman Empire. Actors were kind of seen as dirty prostitutes, people who were paid to pretend to be something they're not. You know what I mean? It was a frowned upon profession of the time, and people kind of, weren't going into the profession as much, and a lot of them left Italy to kind of go and travel all throughout Europe, and they formed a band of merry performers, shall we say, called the Comédie de l'Art movement. And this is where the first kind of circus was invented, something as a traveling troupe of funny people. That's basically
Comedians.
a circus. Basically a circus, yeah, kind of, something like that. But what they would do is they would travel from village to village, from town to town, city to city, country to country, all throughout Europe. Over 1,000-year period, this tradition was kept alive. So from 500 to 1500, it was still going strong. And they would travel to a town square, whip up a quick stage of some kind, very improvised, and do a quick show of comedy with masks. And they had what were called stock characters. So a stock character is a character anyone could recognize anywhere. A soldier, a policeman, a rich man, a baker. It doesn't matter where you are, you'll know what that character is supposed to be. You'll just know. It's cross-cultural, cross-language barriers. And again, it was a very physical art form. It was all about the movement, the comedy, the slapstick, the humor, the hitting each other, the falling over, that type of thing. And that's kind of what happened for 1,000 years as this art was developed. And something interesting happened towards the back end of it, around the 1500s, 1600s. A new character was added to the list of stock characters called Harlequin. And here he is, as he was first introduced here in the middle. This is how he was first kind of seen. This white...
And the name again, Harlequin?
They call it Harlequin, yeah. And so this is from the Italian Arlecchino, but also from the French Harlequins. And Harlequins in French, and I've got the story here, from a 10th century monk. He told this tale in his writings of a club-wielding hairy beast giant with a band of demons roaming through his little French village and just destroying everything. And he was called Harlequins, the giant. Okay, so Harlequin is a mashup of a lot of things. So there's that story from the French tradition. There's also the tradition of the wild man, which was found all throughout Europe. And the wild man is a hairy club-wielding beast. Okay, here's the Portuguese version called the Kratos.
Would that be the Sasquatch?
This is just what they call the Kratos. It represents a demon. They'll tell you what it represents, a giant club-wielding demon. They all have a club. They roam through the village, cause chaos, just like the French story, okay? And this is what they represent themselves as, these multicolored fractal patterns, psychedelic beasts.
Very colorful, too.
Oh, very colorful. The wild man tradition all throughout Europe is very, very colorful. Like, it's shocking how colorful it actually is. Even in Africa, they have a very similar tradition, okay? Representing the same creatures, basically, the spirits. But you'll find the cookery in Bulgaria, this is their flavor of the wild man. It looks like a party hat, doesn't it? Like a clown would wear or something at a party, like with pom-poms and multicolors and tassels, white skin predominantly. And you'll find this traveling troupe of actors kept seeing this wild man everywhere in Europe. And they realized everyone would recognize it. So let's add it as a stock character into our shows. The wild man. And we'll call it Harlequin after Harlequins, the French version. Okay? So the first proto-clown character to ever exist was modeled after European demons known as the Wild Man, who quite literally is a giant who wields a club. Okay, that with lots of hair, lots of multicolored hair. He's always represented pretty colorful most of the time, as I just showed you some examples here. His hair was colorful. He was a hairy, colorful beast and a giant. So this is the European flavor of Nephilim. I think they were hairy because it was cold in Europe, and I think they had adaptation to environments. And I think the European flavor of Nephilim is hairy than most other cultures, just for that simple reason. It's colder, and they have hairier looking visages to them. And like I said, this is the Kratos, the Portuguese version, very colorful. If I go through here, some more examples. That's the Shriners. We'll get into them in a bit. But Harlequin was modeled after it. He had the club, the colorful patterns, the
what you just
mask.
showed before, that was the Shriners?
Yeah, the secret society,
oh, wow,
the Shriners.
That's fitting.
We'll get into
that's
that. That's
real fitting.
We'll get into that. It's that's more of the back end of our research. We'll start getting into that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'm trying to find more Wildman examples here. I do have a few together. Here's the development of Arlecchino. He's quite demonic, crude, brutish. a horrible, nasty character. You know, his character was demonic. He was supposed to be a demon. He represents the wild man, the demon of Europe, okay? But he also kind of had this Mercury melding. So the god of the Mediterraneans, Dionysus, with his thesis staff, who had a band of merry Maenads and satyrs who followed him around on a massive orgiastic party. The patron god of theatre, you know, and drugs and ecstasy and all this type of stuff. And also Mercury from the Roman tradition and the Greek tradition of the messenger of the gods, fleet of foot, quick-witted, somersaulting and fast. And that kind of merged with this northern giant hairy beast figure to create Harlequin, this thing. So, modeled after ancient gods and giants of Europe, Harlequin is a demon. He is a Nephilim, inserted into this tradition of the Comédie de l'Art of Europe. And this is the first circus as we understand it today, okay? And the traditions all throughout Europe show the wild man in many different forms. Even today, this is in Basel, the Fastnacht Festival in Basel. That's in Africa again. So these are some of the early stock characters. Here's an example of the wild man with his harlequin patterned tufts of hair. Again, on a very old statue here from Celtic culture. Here's the cookery in Bulgaria again in their version, very clownish in features. Here's a very hairy, wild version of the wild man, again, from the same region.
That looks like the Yeti to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you'll find, like I said, Europeans' northern versions are very hairy. The further south of the equator you go, they lose the hair and they look terrifying. They get weirder, okay? But they're all talking about the same creatures, fundamentally, and they all have their own way of venerating their culturally specific
And this is
version.
globally.
Oh, yeah, everywhere. Every continent, and we'll get into it. This is Hindu, for example, you know, in India.
Wow.
For the Theum. There's the Rakshasa demons of India. You know, pale white skin, fiery red hair, big horrible toothy grins, bulging eyes. It's all very similar, you know. There's Mercury, like I said, the messenger of the gods with his staff. A Harlequin has his slapstick, which he uses to whip the stage and make the scene change. He had magical powers. He was a demon. That was the point, you know. He was quick-witted, fast, brutish, crude and rude, used his stick as like a phallus symbol, sticking up people's backsides. He was meant to be the comedy factor. You know, he was meant to be the demon in the show. But as the years went on, 200 years of development from the 1500s to the 1700s and so forth, he got boring. He started like getting a tighter leotard, more of a fancy lad about town, you know what I mean? Less beast, more prim and proper. And he wasn't the beast anymore with the club. He was this lovesick fool pining after the daughter of the rich man in his tight, fancy clothing. You know what I mean? So he'd over a couple of 100 years, he'd lost roots with who he was supposed to represent and wasn't acting as demonic anymore and got boring, basically. And there was like a void kind of left in the movement, like who's going to play the demon character? He was missing something, you know what I mean? It wasn't quite as good as it used to be. And you can see the development of his character throughout the years. Like I said, he went to this, but he started out something like this. And he had a side character, someone he worked with. He was always paired with Pedrolino. So this is the Italian name of this character. This is clown, as we know it today. This is where we get the clown from, okay? Pedrolino, an Elizabethan servant of some kind. He was always very dumb. He wasn't the quick-witted, intelligent, sarcastic character that Harlequin was. He was the slow to the uptake, dumb fool. Okay? And those two together would kind of have a back and forth that was funny, you know? So here's Harlequin with the clown, as we understand it. So this is the later British version, which we'll get into. And here's the rich man and his daughter Columbine. Okay? So the old rich man and his daughter, they played with these other two characters, Clown and Harlequin. So Harlequin would steal the rich man's daughter and run away with her. And then the other servant, Clown, would team up with his master, the rich man, and chase after them. And that's the comedy. That's the show. It's a Looney Tunes chase scene for 2 hours where they're going from scene to scene, just falling in holes and leaping through windows and bashing each other over the heads and poking each other with hot pokers and trying to get the daughter
back. Kind of like
back.
Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, trying to get the daughter back. That's the comedy of the British pantomime, which kind of developed out of this Comédie de l'Art movement. But Pedrolino always looked like this for over 1,000 years. You know, he didn't change his costume at all. He just looked like this, just plain, boring, white rags. Just nothing. It's servant rags, you know, no colour whatsoever. And this is Harlequino. This is Harlequin here next to him. A bit more colourful, a bit more demonic. But like I said, he changed. He lost that demonic edge, and a vacuum was formed. He used to be like this, you know what I mean? And then he became like this. It's kind of, it's just not who he used to be, you know? And you'll find the tradition.
It's evolving.
Yeah, so he goes from this, then to that, to that, to that. Kind of like, you know, he got too fancy. He lost his demonicness, and he wasn't funny anymore. Everyone was bored. But then in Britain, you'll find their version of this was a bit spicier. It was a bit more fun and wacky and silly and foolish, you know. In France, they had this sad sack clown, Pedrolino, called Poirot. And he was black and white, and he was always crying and upset because why does...
Like a mime.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why does Columbine love Harlequin and not me? Oh, woe is me. You know, everyone feels sorry for me, the sad clown type of thing. That's the French version. But in Britain, the Pedrolino did not act like that. Pedrolino was drunk all the time, didn't care what his master thought of him, was always just drinking beer and eating sausages, was just a bad servant, you know what I mean? And he was funny. Like, the clown of Britain was just funny. He was way funnier than the sad sack version of Poirot in France, or the boring fool of Pedrolino from the Italian tradition. Britain really was carving out their own version of this, which was just hilarious. And clown seemed to be taking over that demonic attitude, that demonic role that Harlequin originally had. So naturally, clown kind of replaced Harlequin as the lead. And clown was the star of the show. It used to be originally Harlequin, the demon character. That was the comedy factor. Clown took over and replaced Harlequin. And with that replacement, a costume change did come. So no longer was it the boring white servant rags of Pedrolino, as I showed you earlier, but it became this psychedelic fractaled clown monster thing that we have today, which is just a huge change. You know, from this to this is just enough. Like, where did that come from? Who made that change? Because it's never really explained. We're told this particular actor here, Joseph Grimaldi, the greatest entertainer in all of history, all in all, he is clown. He is the first clown in 1799, like I told you, that dressed like this and became clown.
Interesting.
And he wasn't called clown. He was called Pedrolino originally. Clown is just like a British colloquial term for clodhopper or fool or drunk, you know. And it became popularized with this character.
A joke.
Yeah, and this is where we get clown from. Joseph Grimaldi's rendition, this version. And this became the industry standard from this time going forward. And all modern clowns have him to thank for the way they dress now.
Till this day.
Yeah, it was never done before. Prior to him doing this, it was Pedrolino. Okay? The boring white Italian servant. Okay? And then suddenly there's this wild costume change after 1,000 years of tradition, and he becomes this colourful psychedelic fractal monster. What happened? So I looked into it. I did some research and went into the memoirs and found out the characters involved at this time. And it turns out there's a very rich, influential man, Freemason of the time, member of the Leicestershire Lodge, number 2364, I think it is. You can go back and look into their records, and they have like eulogies to the guy. You know, they talk about how great of a brother he was, how much he gave to the British society of his time. He was called Charles Dibdin Sr. Okay, now Charles Dibdin is a big deal. And I have an image of him somewhere, but either way, I've got a picture of his son, which is more important. Charles Dibdin Sr. was a powerful man, very powerful media industry mogul of the time. He wrote plays and music for the British Navy. His songs were sung on the seas of the British Army, you know. He's been equated and thanked for keeping the morale of the British Navy up during wartime and helping them win, you know. At this time as well, the East India Company was colonizing India, okay, and taking over that region of the east coast of India. And he had a brother called Tom Dibdin, who was in the East India Company in India, taking over the place on a regular basis. He had a massive family tie to India. He went to visit his brother Tom many times. This is his son here, Charles Dibdin Jr. Same
He's
name.
homely looking.
Same name, just Junior. Charles Dibdin Jr. Okay. But his father, like I said, had a brother in India, was always going back and forth to India all the time. Very well connected with Indian culture and very much a fan of that culture, wrote plays about that culture all the time. And you know, he's very much in love with Indian iconography. His son probably didn't fall too far from the tree and was very well acquainted with Indian iconography as well. He just was, you know, he was just in that world. Anyway, his father was good friends with somebody called Richard Hughes. And Richard Hughes owned the theatre in which Joseph Grimaldi worked. He owned it. He was the guy who owned it, and he hired people to run it for him. Okay? So Charles Dibdin Sr. said to his mate Richard Hughes, "Can you let my son run your theatre for a little bit?" So he knew the right people. It's nepotism at its finest.
Of course.
My dad knows a guy, and he got me the gig. You know what I mean? So Charles Dibdin Sr.'s son, Charles Dibdin Jr., becomes the showrunner of the Sadler's Wells Theatre, where Joseph Grimaldi is working, and he introduces a brand new costume for the clown. It said he was trying to make his mark on the industry by making a big revolutionary change, you know, to shake things up a little bit so everyone would remember who he was and what he's contributed to British theatre. And another side note is he was also kind of forced to make Grimaldi the lead role. And this is because it's a very sad story. Joseph Grimaldi married Richard Hughes's daughter. So the guy who owned the theatre, he married his daughter, and she died at childbirth. Giving birth to Joseph Grimaldi's child. She died, you know, and she's called Mary. So her last words were it says to her brother Richard Hughes, but there's no documentation of her brother, but she did have a father called Richard Hughes, so I think it got mixed up in translation. They were all named after each other then. It's really confusing when you look into the genealogies. So I think either way, the message got back to her father, Richard Hughes, and she said, "Look after poor Joe. Please look after him. He can't handle this on his own." He was, you know, so I think her dying wish, her father kept. And basically, they went up to this guy he'd just hired and said, "You give him a leading role. You make sure that actor, my no longer son-in-law, because my daughter died, but you make sure he gets a leading role in this theatre from now on." And Joseph Grimaldi was a known entity. He'd grown up in the theatre. His father was a famous actor in the same theatre. He taught a lot of people. He's always been around. He's always been there. But he's never had the lead role until his wife dies. He needs a win, and his ex-father-in-law gives him this opportunity by saying to the new showrunner, "Make him the leading role." So that's what he did. And he also dressed Joseph Grimaldi in that costume I just showed you earlier, which is this thing. Okay, so Joseph Grimaldi didn't invent the clown costume. A son of a famous Freemason called Charles Dibdin did.
Yeah, the common theme here is the Freemason.
Yeah, and we have no idea where he got the inspiration from to make the costume like this. It's completely out of left field. I told you what it used to look like. It used to look like Pedrolino, plain white, boring rags. Now, remember that Indian connection I just told you? Okay, so in India, they have what's called a Rakshasa. That's their version of the wild man. That's their Nephilim. Okay, the Rakshasas. Basically just means giant demon. And they were man-eating giant monsters. Okay, and funnily enough, they're actually on the temples of Bali and Hindu temples all throughout the Indic regions, and they hold up the temple. Okay, and this is what they look like. So,
oh man!
So what happened was,
wow,
a heavily Indian-inspired Freemason who lived there and was going to move there, by the way, but he had to stop because the weather was too bad to sail. He brought Indian iconography back to Britain and dressed the most popular, funniest character in British theatre like an Indian Rakshasa demon. That's what he did.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So the modern rendition of a clown is modelled after the Rakshasa demons of India. And the original version of a clown, Harlequin, is modelled after British versions of demons called the Wild Man.
Isn't that something? Clowns are demons.
They always have been. They have always been a representation of a demon from the very beginning. Like, there's no two ways about it. The connection is visually obvious. You know where he was inspired to get the new costume from. It's from the Rakshasa demons of
And they
India.
represent the Nephilim.
That's just the Hindu version of Nephilim. And they all have a
And
very...
this is cross culture everywhere on the planet.
Yeah, like here's the Oni demons of Japan. That's the that's the same thing as a Rakshasa of India. They just have their own distinct flavor of doing it. Here's the Rakshasas of India. You know what I mean? They all have their own slightly cultural.
A lot of
specific
people would say,
style.
"Well, this is just using their imagination for entertainment." But you're saying, no.
No.
These are actually these are representing real entities,
Oh yeah, real entities that really roamed around at some point that they have,
which are
memories.
disembodied
Spirits now,
spirits now.
and they wear these masks to channel them, to get in touch with their
Damn.
spirits. Yeah.
I mean, that puts a whole new meaning behind Halloween to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but this is cross-cultural. This is in Africa. They commune with the spirits in the same way by wearing masks to channel them and multicolored clothing. Here's again this is very DMT-esque of what the Africans wear.
I mean, dude,
You
if
know.
you think about it, Halloween is a holiday for demons. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's paying homage to
Oh yeah,
disembodied spirits,
Absolutely.
entities, and
here's the fighter con. This is in Thailand. They wear these masks with big grins, very jesterish, and to channel the spirits. That's actually what they do, and they represent demons, and it's to commemorate the time where Buddha came through their village and defeated the demons. But they're representing demons with the masks that they wear here, and in what they believe it's what we call apotropaic in Western anthropology. And apotropaic cultures believe wearing the face of a demon scares demons away. So they use it to ward evil spirits away. However, other cultures wear the mask to channel the spirits of demons. So who's right? Does it scare demons away? Or does it channel demons? Which one is it? They can't both be right. It doesn't work like that.
could it matter on intention?
No,
I mean,
I don't think so. I think spiritual ignorance of the law doesn't make you immune to spiritual laws.
mhm.
Someone's lied somewhere. Okay,
What culture is this we're looking at right here? Aboriginal,
This one's in Africa.
African.
This one's in Africa. Yeah, they're all quite they're quite common. Africa's a huge country. Sorry, continent with many countries. By the way, many different ways of doing it. This is back in India again. Again, this is the only demons of Japan. Red hair, crazy wild smiles, bulging eyes. This is a mating ritual. This is to attract women. Red tassels, multicolored sequins, colorful faces, and they make the eyes as wide as possible and bear as much teeth as possible, and they have to be as tall as possible, and that's the most attractive male. Do you get what I mean? And by the way, they're
Yeah.
tripping balls here. They are off their tits.
What are they high on?
I have no idea. It's some kind of random African concoction they've created, based on but they are basically on amphetamines. They're basically just going nuts with energy here, and this is what they do for hours on end, just chattering their teeth. But they're trying to emulate
And
something.
women are attracted to this.
But they're trying to emulate a standard of beauty. So they have these beauty standards which are mimicking something that they consider attractive features. Big teeth, bulging eyes, very tall, colourful skin. They are venerating their ancestors, and this beauty standard comes from somewhere. It comes from the Nephilim that were once the creators of their cultures, Wow. And here's in Papua New Guinea, random rainforest in the middle of nowhere. And this is how they dress to venerate their ancestor spirits.
The red nose, man, in the middle of nowhere.
White powder on the neck there, but it's usually all over the face as well. A red nose, a red headdress, but they use feathers because that's what they've got available to them. Other cultures might use reeds or something, or whatever's culturally available. You know what I mean? Is what they use. And they all have their own style. Here's a statue in China of a demon. White skin, wide mouth, buck teeth, long tongue. Tongue sticking out is very common as well. A mocking symbol, a very clownish symbol. Wild red hair. If we just go through a lot of these examples, it becomes clear. There's the DMT jesters, a bit of a joke there. But look at this random culture again in Papua New Guinea, in the mountainous regions. They white the skin up and they put on red reeds all over the hair, all over the head. They're trying to show power. They're trying to show that there's it's their power set symbol. They get it from something. They're mimicking the Nephilim, the spirits.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Honestly, it's multicultural. There's the fighter con again in Thailand. Again, a spirit veneration ritual. Tassels, a lot like the wild man of Europe I showed you earlier, the Kratos. A big grinning mask, big wide smile. Elongated features like a serpent. Here we are in Africa again. representing the spirits, the ancestors, big bulging eyes, fractaled patterned skin, black and white, another very common motif. Here's the generals of China. This is another spirits. This is what they're trying to represent, the spirits here of the cultures. They got the slits down the eye, a very another common clown makeup theme. That's a predator symbol. That's a symbol of a slit pupil. It's a serpent look, primarily. It's also a predator look. Predators have slit pupils to get a better view of the prey on the horizon. Prey have horizontal pupils to get a wider view of the horizon to see predators. It's basic, and clowns often have a cross down the eye, a slit down the eye. Here again, in Africa again, channeling the spirits, the ghosts on the other side, fractaled clothing, white panned face usually, and clown-like makeup or patterns all over the face. This is back in India again, the Theum tradition. What these guys do is they quite literally channel the spirit, and then people give them stuff like chickens, and they bite the head off the chicken and drink its blood, because there's a spirit in them by that point. They have to do it. It's considered like they're not really doing their job if they don't kill the chicken and drink its blood. It's frowned upon. It's like you're not pleasing the spirit in you type of thing, And then the spirit gives them stuff. Here again, polka dot patterns. They wear these dresses, these sound suits, which they flay around all over the place to make them look ethereal when they dance, like waves all over the place.
Wow.
Because they're trying to mimic the spirits in the spirit realm, that very psychedelic
like
visage. Like
DMT.
Absolutely, yeah. You find like Africa and like more Aboriginal cultures get way more psychedelic than we do in the West. They get really weird and trippy with their costumes. You know what I mean? Like really trippy. it's they're seeing some stuff, man. Like they're definitely taking some things.
They've seen beyond.
Oh yeah, they're constantly, But you have like the totem poles of the the Pacific Northwest regions, the Haida Gwaii, this type of stuff. They often represent animal-human hybrids with big wide red lips and buck teeth, and birds with human faces in their chests, which are probably representations of angels that have human forms, feathered beasts of some kind.
What's crazy is like most people, I always grew up thinking this stuff was just a figment of their imagination, just kind of like fiction. But man, there's always something behind everything.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, these things have a reason for existing, and this is the cookery of Bulgaria. This is another version of their spirits, their ancestors. And you see this repeat pattern. I mean, what the fighter Khan of Thailand dress in the exact same way, and they're separated by thousands of miles, oceans and cultures. They shouldn't be dressing the same unless they're having a shared experience with something, like a spirit, let's say. And the spirits are pretty consistent throughout wherever you are. And again, they wear these masks to channel them, to commune with them, to let them into their bodies. And
the Shriners there. I mean, geez.
Yeah, well, let's get into.
There's Gacy, right there.
Oh yeah, John Wayne Gacy. Yeah, he famously killed 33 young men as well, and started dressing like a clown halfway through his spree. And funnily enough, maybe we can continue the story of the history of this, because from clowning, that was the industry standard. It was set then by Grimaldi, modeled after demons, obviously. Then that's when circuses really came around. And circuses up until this point were just horse tricks around a circle stage. A man standing on top of horses doing backflips was the modern circus. That's as far as it pretty much went. Here's Philip Astley. He was the first guy to do this. He was an ex-general, and he came back and did horse tricks and created a circus. Funnily enough, Richard Hughes and Charles Dibdin Sr. opened up their own circus across the road from this guy, copied his work, and that's when they brought clowns into it. So Freemasonry involved with hijacking an old thing and making it their own there immediately. They called it the Royal Circus rather than Philip Astley's Grand Equestrian Amphitheatre or something like that. And then you'll find that tradition moved over to America. This is where you really get the modern circus really becoming a thing. The original circuses of America kept burning down because they were stationary, and I don't know, something about America, everything kept catching fire. So circuses became a traveling thing on the back of trains. And it was a long process to get there, but all Freemasons were involved in the entire process. And then you had the big top tent being created, where it would be a quick improvised tent you could move from village to village and travel the country on the train line with, go to a next place, put up the big top, and everyone will come and visit, And that was kept alive for the good 200 years, well, about 100 years after the beginning of Joseph Grimaldi's clowning, and clowns came with the circus. The clown's job was to entertain the crowd while they changed the scene at the circus in the background, and that they were useful for that, that's for sure. But then when you start really looking into it, you'll find actually something suspect is going on here with circuses, very suspect, because suddenly a whole group of Freemasons got together who all had their own circuses in America, and they became one giant show. 10 circuses all came together with all their animals, all their tents, all their space, all their actors. It was like thousands of people involved, and they had a show called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and it traveled all throughout America and even made it to Europe. And you look into this, and every single aspect of that show was created through Freemason-affiliated companies. The backdrops were painted by Freemason-owned companies that made it for the lodges in the areas. All the costumes were created by the Henderson Arms Company, who made all the regalia for Freemason lodges, the little aprons they wear, the little badges they put on, everything, the top hats, all made by this one company. The artwork was created by Barossi Calaufi, a famous London Freemason artist. Everything was Freemason-run. Every single inch of this show was Freemasonry. They love King Solomon. They equate him to be the first master mason who built the temple using a ring to control demons. Okay, so
circus ring.
He is the Lord of the Ring. Yes, he is the ring. He is the ringmaster. Okay, and if you look into this, if you look into any Freemason lodge, and this isn't even hidden, it's on their website. They'll tell you this openly. Only the Grand Worshipful Master of the lodge, the leader, can wear a top hat. He is allowed to wear one because it symbolically represents the crown of Solomon. And sometimes,
I think of Abraham Lincoln, bro.
Well, some lodges, like in Texas, for example, they wear like cowboy hats instead because it's like culturally specific. Right. But top hats are traditionally what Freemasons wear, and only the leader is allowed to wear one. So they modeled that into the circus that they all owned. So the ringleader, the King Solomon analog, who wears the crown, the hat, who controls the ring of the circus, is King Solomon. It's just copied from Freemason lodge rituals.
Wow.
So that's what the ringmaster is. And what does the ringmaster do? He uses the ring, King Solomon, to control the demons to build his temple. Well, the ringmaster orchestrates the clowns to put on the show. And clowns are an analog for demons. So it's all symbolically there. It's just King Solomon controlling demons.
Right there, open and hidden in plain sight.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's just the profane masses who pay to come and take part in the ritual don't know that's what it's for.
And who do you take to circus as your children?
Yeah, and you get involved in the ritual without realizing it. You think it's fun for the kids.
Dude,
but the initiated know full well what they're doing. It's just all symbolism. It's just all representations of demons, King Solomon, invocation rituals around a pentagram type circle of sorts. It's all kind of there. And yeah, that's continued into the modern age. And you'll find this is where it gets really interesting. There's a guy called Phineas Taylor Barnum. He's actually one of the most famous, P.T. Barnum. One of the most famous like circus people. He actually only joined the game when he was like 60 years old. So he was quite old to join circus. I haven't got a picture of him here, but you all know who he is. The Greatest Showman was a film made about him, But he invented the three-ring
with
circus.
Hugh Jackman?
I think so, yeah. It's a very glorified image of him. He was a charlatan, a brutish man, a liar, a swindler all throughout his life. There's many stories about the shenanigans that guy got up to. Honestly, he was just a charlatan, right? Honest through and through. Right. But he got into the circus game because he was looking for a new gig to get money and manipulate people. And he invented the freak show. Actually, he brought these deformed people from his little museum,
which are all over the internet now.
Yeah, his museum of curiosities. He brought it into his own circus and teamed up with Bailey, P.T. Barnum and Bailey Circus. And Bailey had the animals, he had the freaks. It was that type of thing, But anyway, he invented the three-ring circus. He wanted it bigger, But it's no coincidence that 3 interlocking rings is the logo of the Oddfellows, which is the Freemasonry offshoot he was a member of.
And the Olympics.
Well, that's 5 interlocking rings, but yeah.
3. Okay.
But still, 3 interlocking rings is the logo of the Oddfellows. He was a member of the Oddfellows, and so was Albert Pike, King George the Fourth, I think, was a member as well. Like, leaders of the world are members of this lodge, and famous actors. Charlie Chaplin was a member of this. It's kind of, what are world leaders and actors doing together in a Freemason guild? Very odd, unless every single member is actually an actor playing roles on the world stage, and they all answer to the lodge, the secret societies at the end. That's my theory, but either way,
I think that's a damn good theory.
yeah,
It's all theater.
P.T. Barnum took the logo of his lodge and made it a main staple of circuses, 3 rings. So it's all Freemasonry. Circuses have always been representations of Freemasonic symbolism from the very beginning, and it is, people don't know any of this. You're not supposed to know this. It's supposed to be occult knowledge. It's hidden. It's just only the initiated would probably learn this type of stuff, and I've uncovered it and I presented it all to you. So clowns have always been demons. There was never a point where they were not a representation of a demon. Freemasonry was heavily involved in the creation of the costume and the creation of modern circuses, and now you've seen it, you're not going to be able to not see it. And that's just the historical aspect. Like I said, I shared with you today the other cultures, just a glimpse of the other cultures all over the earth who venerate these things through their rituals to channel the ancestor spirits. You know?
Wow, this has been eye-opening.
Yeah, and that's what they're modeled after. This is what they are represent. This is what a clown represents. So a modern clown is Nephilim features kind of caricatured together into our version of these costumes. So big wide red lips, serpent feature. Snakes can dislocate their jaws to eat their prey. These things are hybrids of humans mixed with snakes. Okay, with dragons. That's what these things are. Big elongated skull, like a cone head.
Humans that are hybrids with the DMT entities that I saw. I mean,
well,
really.
I mean, look at this one. Okay.
Gosh, and then you think about McDonald's, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
you
one,
gotta be thinking about Ronald McDonald right now.
absolutely, yeah. Well, you should.
What
be,
are they putting in the food?
Well, you should be thinking about it, yeah. Now I've said this.
I mean, I don't eat that junk, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is the Wangina of the Kimberley regions of Australia. Okay, and the Wanginas are said to be the offspring of the rainbow serpents. So that's just another way of saying this: the fiery flying dragons of European Christian mythos. Like the Nephilim are the offspring of the dragons. The Wanginas are the offspring of the rainbow serpents. You know, they have their own way of describing it, their own names. It's all the same story. We're all sharing the same story here. And this is what they look like, quite literally like a clown. Very, very literally like a clown. And they paint these on the rock art in their regions, and they've been there for millennia, and they keep them alive. Only the shaman is allowed to go into the cave and repaint it every year to keep it original to form, you know?
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, does this look like a clown to you? It looks like a clown to me. I can't really see it any other way, you know, and it's very apparent and on the nose when you really actually start looking into it. And it's because we in the West have copied these images and put it into our version of the costume, which we call a clown. They don't call them clowns. They call them sacred rain
And I'll
spirits.
never look at them the same again.
But look at this. It's got the polka dots. It's got the frill around the neck. It's got the big eyes. It's got the red afro. It's got everything we would equate to clown features. But these are the offspring of the serpents, the great serpent gods. You know, and that's their history.
They almost look like owls or like grays.
Oh, yeah. They're also linked to owls quite heavily as well. You'll see owls and these creatures mixed together too. They're acquainted with being weather controllers and electricity controllers. They can bring thunder and storms, and obviously get these cultures doing rain dances to the storm gods to bring or stop rain. And you'll find that in North America they have a lot of those type of cultures. The Lakota tribes do it through the Hayoka, but then the Pueblo clowns do it in the more Hopi regions where it's more arid, and they both do it for different reasons. In the north they want to stop the rain because it's killing them. In the south they want to bring more rain because they're thirsty. But they're all doing the same ritual, dressed the same, to communicate with the same entities, the rain gods. You know, then it seems like the Nephilim did have some kind of connection to storms. It's a very common thread. But you find this visage, these looks are everywhere on every continent in many ways, and they all have extremely clownish features. And it's because they're all talking about the same experience with the same creatures. They all have a shared experience. Here's like this is the Selknam tribe further south, the very southern tip of South America, and they dress very similar to the Hopi Kachinas and the Lakota tribe Kachinas of the Hayoka. But they're separated by thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. So how do they have a shared image? How do they know what these things look like? It baffles the mind until you really consider that. Well, they're communing with psychedelic interdimensional entities that look like that in the spirit realm. You know, and black and white motif is very, very common. You know, and going back to Sri Lanka, here's another example of one. He is masks worn by in the Venetian carnivals. You know what I mean? In Italy, still communing with spirits. And then you get these secret societies like the Shriners, who are an offshoot of Freemasonry, the next level up, in fact. And they all have a clown sect. Why do Shriners, who are supposedly modeled after Middle Eastern themes, dressing like clowns? That makes no sense until you understand what I'm telling you.
Sense.
They're communing with spirits. That's what they do in these occult mystery wisdom schools. But they've done it publicly, and everyone thinks they're just having fun, and it's just for the kids. But we're not supposed to know what the symbol really represents in these communities that do this, in these cultures.
God, that's creepy, man.
It's hidden, you know, in plain sight. And then above these, you have something called the Royal Order of the Jesters. Like, what? How is that the pinnacle of Freemasonry? Jesters. Why? Until you understand what I'm telling you. It's because they're communing with spirits of the highest order. These secret societies are the physical foot soldiers for the spiritual hierarchy. And they answer
to control the world.
Yeah, they answer to demons. I mean, let's go to Greek mythology. Medusa. You've all heard of Medusa. I mean, traditionally, what does Medusa look like?
Headdress with snakes.
Snakes for hair and everything. Yeah, not at all. No, traditionally, earliest forms, she looks like this. This is Medusa. This is Medusa. She's a Gorgon. Okay? She is the offspring of a Echidna, a siren, a woman, a human snake hybrid, who mates with a serpent sea dragon called Typhon. So that's a fiery dragon from the sea mixing with a human woman who's been hybridized into a snake person, a siren.
So humans are so sought after.
Yeah, this looks like the Rakshasas of India or the Oni of Japan. Or they have the same visage and the same look. Because when you mix a dragon with a human, you get this. You get a giant with a horse in her arm here, with wings or some kind of weird angel feature, big wide grins with the tongue sticking out, giant bulging eyes that look like they want to murder you. Like, you get this terrifying looking thing. Nothing to do with snakes for hair. That's a modern depiction. That wasn't the case at all. They look like this. Like, with red hair, white skin, you know, big white smiles. And again, this is on the chest of Athena. Okay, on a pottery vase. I've zoomed in quite a lot here, but you can find a vase, an ancient Greek Roman vase with Athena on there, and on her chest she has this. This looks like a modern clown to me, and it's literally the head of Medusa. And the story goes that Perseus beheaded Medusa and gave the head as a gift to Athena, and Athena wears it as a pendant. So Athena's huge, a giant angel goddess, you know, with this tiny giant's head on a chest as protection. It's supposed to ward off evil spirits. So this is called a Gorgonian, and you'll find a lot of shields of the time have this in the middle of it, this face in the middle of their shields, for the same reason Athena did. She's the goddess of war to protect you during battle. So it became a common motif after the fact. But, I mean, that looks like a bloody clown to me. I can't see it any other way.
100% with his tongue out.
It's ridiculous, isn't it, how much of a clown that looks. And it's because clowns are modeled after these images I'm showing you, these other cultures. It's not a unique creation. It's a copy. We've copied these features from other cultures, and we've created this monster we call a clown. But it's not harmless. It's a tool to these other cultures. When these other cultures dress this way, they're serious. They're communing with their ancestors. Just because we don't know that doesn't make us immune to it, I'm afraid. It doesn't change what this does.
Doorway.
It's a door. You're opening a doorway. Absolutely. You put on the mask. You channel the creature. You channel the spirits. And that's what all these cultures do. These are the mudmen of Papua New Guinea, another tribe. Here's the fighter con again. Big, wide, grinning masks, you know, jester-like features. Here's Sri Lanka, the Rakshasa masks of Sri Lanka. Here's what a dragon-human hybrid would have really looked like. Here's the Rangda, the demon queen of the same region. Fractal patterns, serpent skin, tongue sticking out. But this is actually a very innocent version of her. She usually looks a lot more monstrous and terrifying than that. Here again, another Rakshasa mask doing the dance. They are communing with their ancestors when they do this. It's no joke. Like, they don't think... Look at this Shriner Hospital, where they go and terrify dying children, you know what I mean? And you look into all the history of that, it's just basically a tax con. And funnily enough, this is a bit of a trivia.
How many movies like Poltergeist and like...
Yeah, the clown and yeah, exactly. Like, why include that until you realize this isn't a good one. So this is, have you seen Supernatural before, the TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this was brought to my attention years after I started my theory. Turns out, I think it's like season 2, episode 2, or something like that. There's this storyline where a little boy lets this clown into his house at the start, and the clown kills the parents and eats them. Because the boy let it in, okay? So then investigations launched by the Supernatural team, you know what I mean? You know what's going on here. The circus has come to town, by the way, at the same time. It turns out this is a Rakshasa demon. It's a race of Hindu creatures that appear human in form and they feed on human flesh. This is a quote from the actual TV show. They were telling us in 2006 the truth. Clowns are a representation of Rakshasa demons. Okay? They were telling us in this TV show what I discovered over a decade later.
On your own.
On my own, a decade later. So it's always been there. They've been laughing at us. They've been telling us this in the media for ages. And I had to discover through sleuthing through like memoirs of the 1800s to find out that the father went to India all the time to then research the temples of to find this connection myself.
You actually did thorough research,
Yeah, exactly.
a thorough investigation, thorough journalism, and here it is.
The people in the media industry who are clearly in the know are in the know. And they threw it together. You know, this is a Rakshasa demon of India again. This is what it's modeled after. This is what clowns are modeled after. It's no joke.
And it's in our face with McDonald's. I mean, jeez.
Absolutely. So there's an overall presentation. I can repeat myself. I've got thousands of more images. There's so many facets we can go through this. I mean, never mind the fact that they're actually pushing clown fashion on us today through clowncore. And it's actually a popular movement online right now as well to dress like a clown. Our youth has been indoctrinated to be this way. There's always a new It. There's always a new Joker rendition. There's always a new popularization of clown serial killers in movies because they want more people dressing like clowns to open more channels in the West. We are letting them in. We are falling for it hook, line, and sinker.
There you go.
This stuff is dark. This is spiritual warfare. This is how it really works.
So folks, now you know, and once you know, you can't unknow this stuff. You know,
No,
it's So,
like I said, I know what it sounds like at the start, but give me an hour or so, and I bet I can make you convinced that this is.
It's not often I sit through a whole hour and a half podcast, but this is longer, but this one was, a wealth of information, very intriguing, and I believe it 100%. You showed the evidence, you showed the proof, you showed the data, you showed your research. I can't argue with it, man. So, and I don't think you're going to have many people arguing with this one. So, Paul, man, thank you so much, folks. What's the name? Understanding Conspiracy.
That's the YouTube,
everywhere. It's Instagram. It's YouTube. I'll put your YouTube link.
Look for this.
look for that. There you go. Understanding Conspiracy, man. You do a lot of solid work, man.
Thanks.
So, Paul, I'd love to have you on again at some point. Thank you for joining me.
No, thank you, David. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. If people want to find me, Understanding Conspiracy, you want the book, just go on to Amazon. You can't miss it. And hopefully I'll catch you over my channel. And again, God bless.
You got it. Thank you so much, Paul. God bless you.
When ordinary people think of autumn, they imagine shorter days, cozy fires, curling up with a great piece of literature, and basking in the warming scent of cinnamon with shades of burnt orange, which your other half has decided to spend the life savings on to decorate the home for only 2 months, just as God intended. Yet we must remember that this transition into the frosty abyss of winter creates the perfect conditions for the spread of the pathogen known as Halloween. This disease causes people to dress like demons and go door to door asking for free stuff. This public service announcement aims to give you the correct tool to help you deal with these contagious commie behaviors when they manifest in your local community. First, you'll want to arm yourself with multiple shots of the best-selling paperback on Amazon called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. With this PPE, you're fully equipped and well protected to handle what's to come next. Second, have a pumpkin spice latte and white girl autumn your time away in knitted cream shackets and pilgrim hats, because soon enough, Samhain begins. This is when the veil between the spirit realm and the physical world is at its thinnest, and possession, the main symptom of Halloween, is more commonly presented, causing this type of unironic cringe to start happening. Just look at him. This poor soul thinks he looks cool. And if you're not careful, this could be you. Together we can stop the spread of Halloween and flatten the curve. When you see fully grown adults playing dress-up and mirroring unspeakable horrors from beyond the void, remember your training and cure their vapid sense of self-identity by handing them one of our favourably reviewed treatments. Your country must develop herd immunity to seasonal cringe. So, spread the cure far and wide. Just like the cure, this disease does not discriminate by age. Emulating the infected, you will see children running around in bedsheets, knocking on doors, begging for sugary treats, and threatening to damage your well-earned property. Make sure to fill their novelty buckets with the one thing all children secretly want: a well-rounded and relatable education in biblical history. That'll stop the spread. The Nephilim Look Like Clowns and the inevitable booster volumes are currently the only known cure to thinly veiled demon channeling holidays. This is your best defense against this pandemic of spooky proportions. All you have to do is trust the science. Which you know we did, because I'm showing you people wearing lab coats and looking serious. Get your copy on Amazon today and be prepared for tomorrow. Side effects of reading The Nephilim Look Like Clowns include, but are not limited to, a feeling of existential crisis, a well-rounded knowledge of a Christian contrarian view on human history, a foundational understanding of spiritual warfare, and a healthy aversion to clowns.
I want you to get together.